So I'm Mandy Barnett. I am a retired consultant physician and clinical educator. And I first met you, Anne, in October 2014. And at that time, I had just taken redundancy and was about to take early retirement. I was completely burnt out. I was on sick leave. I was about to see my income drop by half. My husband, Patrick, was working partly from home as a tutor, partly as a lecturer at a college. I've got two children, Alex, who is now 24, was then 15, and Angelica, who's now 18. And we were comfortably off. I was about to get a lump sum, but I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do next in my life, let alone with the money. I'd never calculated my net worth. I had no idea what my spending habits were. Because we had a comfortable income, I didn't really think about it. I mean, I'd spent 33 years in the NHS, and I was feeling quite bitter because I basically retired without a leaving party. No, thank you, nothing. It was just actually, you're not particularly useful anymore. Well, I think I didn't feel awful because I knew I'd got this lump sum coming. But I think what I was thinking at the time was, should I just use the lump sum to pay off most of the mortgage? It wouldn't have cleared it, but it would have paid it off. And just but it felt like everything was going to shrink. I felt like my life was shrinking, my identity was going, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did want to just retire, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it just felt my life was closing down. And, we had a buy-to-let, but we weren't making the best of it. We had managed funds. It was the classic TV dinner money chef. We had funds in our kids' names, which managed, which weren't performing. I spent God knows what on clothes every year, and I didn't even know what I'd spent. And we had a big mortgage that we'd got on an interest-only basis that was due to come to an end in 4 years, and we didn't know what we were going to do about it. And that's where I started. I'm not even sure if I got your book to begin with. I found out about you through a women's networking group I joined as a kind of like, what the hell am I going to do next? And I came to FFU Live, and there was about 60 people in the room then. And I just remember the first day just thinking, oh my God, this is just something completely different. And at the end, I think the second day, you talked about your gourmet year and going to South Africa. So I spent my redundancy money, because I hadn't got my lump sum then, to go. And so I went on gourmet and I went to South Africa. So I wrote a letter to myself in South Africa, envisaging what I thought would happen in 7 years. I set myself a 7-year time frame. So I went from 2015 to 2022, 7 years. I kind of thought ahead of how might I be, and I look back on it when I got to that point, and I had done not all of it, but I had done probably at least 2/3 of what I'd said I'd do, despite the pandemic, and despite the fact, as you know, our daughter Angelica was critically ill for 2 years. So everything got incredibly held up in that time. And yet I still got to most of where I wanted to go. And the biggest thing was that I believed I could get there. And so, after we came back from South Africa, one of the things I realised, just to come back to the money story, I suddenly realised that what I really wanted to do was property. I've always loved property. I want to do property. And you kind of said, well, just go for it. So I signed up to a property mastermind program back here in the UK. And I did that for a year. But where we are now is we've got 4 HMOs fully let. Coming back to ourselves, we still were left with this, what do we do with our own sodding mortgage? But we were able to go back to that and then finally do what we should have done years ago, which was to get a repayment mortgage. And so since we took that out in 2019. We've paid off over 80,000. It would repay itself anyway over time just by keeping going. But one of the things we've done is, and I have to fess up here, Anne, I've liquidated my ISA. The reason I've done it is I realised that I can pay myself back through the company director's loans for the next 20 years tax-free, and the ISA wasn't growing. So what we've done is we've reduced our liabilities with our property, our commercial property with the ISA, and I'm reducing, although it's a neutral debt, I'm reducing our house mortgage so that we can pay that off faster. You know, the only thing I'd ever made a conscious effort towards was maximising my pension. I knew I'd sorted out my pension, and and I got a good pension as a result. But that was the only thing I'd ever consciously done. And I mean, I used to see the thing come up every year saying, have you finished investing in your ISAs? And I never invested in my ISAs. I never had enough money left over because I was spending everything, and it was like, why would I do that? It just wasn't on my radar. And I think it was that. And I think the thing that I find interesting is looking back and looking now, from that 33,000 net worth, I added up my net worth this October, and notwithstanding, that we haven't made all the right decisions by any means, our net worth from 33,000 then is now, not counting the pension, the actual asset net worth is 750,000, and we have a property portfolio worth 1.5 million. This is where following you is so much more than a program, because I've met other entrepreneurs. There are people in the property world who've done great things, but they don't resonate with me the way that you've resonated with me at a personal level. I just feel because you didn't come from a business background, you didn't come from a financial background, and you care about things other than just succeeding in business. And I think that was the thing that meant a lot to me, because I didn't want to be a businesswoman. I had a lot of ethical considerations, and I think the thing I found slightly in the property world is, though I've tried to stick with the ethical people, and mostly have, it doesn't feel the same. I don't get the same sense of buzz and inspiration that always brings me back to you. Ultimately, I think we will probably divest ourselves of our portfolio and put what we liberate into the options trading, so that we can just move around and not have to think about it anymore. But we'll do that when it's a good point. We don't have to do it. We'll do it when there's a good point economically. So at that point, we will then have complete mobility. We love our house. So the aim there is, we could downsize and be financially free, but we like it. And although it's a neutral debt, we make our house work for us. I let rooms to people attending retreats nearby. We run our offices from it, so it works for us, and it's a lovely place, and I love coming home. And I think it's the point about, it's not perfect. And we could want more, but we have enough, and that's the differentiation. I could look at making a lot more money but we choose not to. We choose to make enough. That's what I got from you. It's so much more than the money. The money helps, but it's so much more than the money.